Have you ever stopped to wonder why it is that you're feral over Rhysand? Like staying up till 3 a.m., cancelling plans, reading 800 pages in 2 days to the point where the BookTok algorithm just knows to feed you ACOTAR content. Does a fictional High Lord make you feel things that maybe your ex never did? Why is that? And before you say, because he's hot, or because the books are good and fun and entertaining, yes, sure. But also, there is something way deeper happening here. Something psychological and something that's going to show you a part of yourself that you might not have met yet. That's what we're decoding today. Why you're addicted to these books, what you're actually projecting onto these fae males, and how to take that power back. This is gonna get a little bit uncomfortable, but it is worth it. Let's go. If you're new here, I'm Zila Farako, professional witch and founder and high priestess of the Nightshade Sanctum Mystery School, a witch school and priestess path for incredible people called to go deep with dark goddesses. This is episode 2 in a series decoding ACOTAR and the feminine psyche. If you haven't watched episode 1, pause here, go watch it first, because we're setting up the framework there. Before we go any further, this is a spoiler discussion. Light spoilers, but spoilers nonetheless. If you have not read the books, go read them first, save this video to your watch later, and come and join us when you're done. Before we dive in, let me set some expectations. We're doing shadow work here, and that means we're going to explore why it is that you're thirsting after Rowan, Cassian, Rhysand, and yes, it might get a little uncomfortable because shadow work means looking at the parts of yourself that you've been avoiding or outsourcing. I'm not here to stop reading these books. I'm not here to shame you for loving them. I love them too. But I am here to show you something deeper than I just like the story. There's a psychological mechanism at play here, and once you see it, you can't unsee it, and it is worth looking deeper into this because what you learn will change your life. So bear with me in this series. If there's discomfort, it's part of the work, and there's a point to this that is gonna make it all worth it. So if you're ready for this, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, because each episode is going to go deeper. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so let's just be honest about what is happening. The fact is, you're in a relationship with Rhysand. Maybe not legally, maybe not physically, but psychologically, absolutely. You know what he's thinking. You know how he'd react to situations in your real life. You reference him in conversations with your friends. Rhysand would never. You've compared real men to him and found them lacking. Hopefully, you haven't accidentally called your partner by his name. This is what psychologists call a parasocial relationship. It's a one-sided emotional connection where you feel intimacy with someone who doesn't know you exist. And it's not just for books. People do this with celebrities and influencers and fictional characters. And here's why it feels so good. Rhysand can't reject you. He can't disappoint you. He can't fail to meet your needs. You have complete control over this relationship. When he does something that pisses you off, you can skip ahead in the books. You can put the book down. You can go read fan fiction where he does exactly what you want. You get all of the intensity of desire and devotion without any of the risk, no vulnerability required. The thing that is fascinating for a lot of women is that these fictional relationships feel more intense than real relationships sometimes. You feel more seen by Rhysand than by your actual partner, and you feel safer with him than you do with real men. Why? Well, because he's perfect. He's written to hit every single psychological need. He's deadly to the world and devoted to her. He's powerful, but never threatening to Feyre. He sees her, and yet he chooses her, empowers her, and worships her. He's engineered to be utterly irresistible. Real men can't compete with that. They're going to disappoint you sometimes. They're going to be tired and distracted. They're also going to have their own needs that conflict with yours. That is called being human. But Rhysand exists to fulfill the fantasy. And your nervous system knows the difference between fantasy and reality, but it gets the dopamine hit anyway. So every time you finish a book and immediately start the next one, every time you reread your favorite scenes, every time you scroll book talk for edits of Rhysand set to angsty music, you're chasing that hit. It's functionally an addiction. Your brain is anticipating the reward. When will he declare the bond? When will they kiss? When will she ascend into her power? You don't know exactly when, so you keep reading. Just one more chapter, one more page. And then you crash when the book ends and you need another fix. That is dopamine mechanics. And now, I'm not saying this to make you feel concerned or bad about this at all. I'm saying this because once you understand the mechanism, you can work with it consciously instead of unconsciously. All right, so let's get into the psychology of what's actually happening when you fantasize about these males. Because it's not just, I think he's hot. There is a specific mechanism called projection, and it's running in the background of your entire experience. So here's what happened. When you were a little girl, you had access to certain qualities: fierceness, rage, deadly precision, the capacity to say no without explanation, the ability to take up space without apology, the willingness to be dangerous when necessary. And then you got punished for it, maybe overtly, being told that you were too much or too bossy or too difficult or too aggressive, or maybe subtly, the disappointed look, the withdrawal of affection, the message that you were more lovable when you were sweet. So through socialization, you learned to split those qualities off. You exiled them because keeping them was too dangerous. It made you unlovable, and as a child, being unlovable is a survival threat. But the thing is, those disowned parts don't disappear. They go into the shadow. And then you start to see them in other people. You start projecting them outward. So now, when you read about Rhysand, who's fierce and deadly, who protects with absolute ferocity, who has boundaries that don't negotiate, you don't recognize that as your own disowned energy. You experience it as a desire for him. The touch her and you die romantasy trope actually means I want a man who will destroy anyone who hurts me. But the translation is I exiled my own capacity to be dangerous. I want a mate who's fierce and protective. Translation, I split off my own fierce protector energy. The mate bond fantasy is your psyche's way of trying to reclaim, reintegrate what got split off, except that you're looking for it in an external figure instead of recognizing it as already yours. So here's what I want you to start noticing. Every time you think, I want a man who, or I wish he would, pause and ask yourself, what would it look like if I embodied this myself? I want a man who protects me fiercely would be, what would it feel like to be my own fierce protector? Or I want someone who will burn down the world for me. What would it feel like to trust my own sacred rage? This is how you start catching that projection, and then once you see it, you can actually start reclaiming it. Okay, quick pause. If this is clicking for you, if you're starting to see your own patterns, hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed. We're going deeper in the next section. All right, now I want to show you what you've actually been projecting onto these males. Because the fierce protector energy, the sacred rage, the deadly boundaries, these aren't masculine qualities. We get told that they're masculine qualities, but that is a lie. They are feminine qualities, particularly the shadow feminine. Shadow meaning the part that we're unconscious of. The shadow feminine is embodied by the dark feminine, and it's expressed and noticed through those archetypes of the dark feminine. These qualities are dark goddess energies, and they got coded as masculine by patriarchy and forbidden to women. Let's talk about Medusa. You know her as the monster with snakes for hair, but here's the real story. Medusa was a priestess of Athena, Poseidon raped her in the temple, and Athena transformed her, gave her serpents for hair, a gaze that could turn anyone to stone. Now, think about that for a second. Athena gave Medusa the ultimate boundary. Not a boundary she has to explain, not a boundary she has to enforce with words, just a gaze. Look at me wrong, and I will turn you to stone. Medusa doesn't need anyone to protect her. She is the apex predator. She never has to wait for someone to defend her because her very presence is the weapon itself. When you're fantasizing about Rhysand, about him being deadly to the world and devoted to her, you're actually recognizing Medusa energy, the fierce protector, the one whose boundaries are absolute, the one who does not negotiate, and that energy is yours. So what does it actually look like to embody Medusa in your daily life? Well, it looks like saying no without softening your nose, without the paragraph-long explanation, without "I'm sorry, but just no," letting your energy enforce it. It looks like having a gaze that people can feel. When someone crosses the line, you look at them and they know. They feel the boundary. You don't have to say a word. It looks like ending relationships or friendships that violate you and not feeling guilty about it. Not staying to manage their feelings around the end of the relationship. Just cutting it off because your threshold was crossed. That is Medusa. And every time you fantasize about a male doing that for you, you're actually recognizing your own disowned Medusian gaze. Now let me introduce you to Sekhmet, Egyptian goddess, lion-headed, absolute destroyer. When cosmic order was violated, Ra sent Sekhmet to restore balance, and she raged. She destroyed everything that violated Ma'at, divine order, cosmic justice. She was absolutely unstoppable, and the gods had to trick her with beer dyed to look like blood to get her to stop. But here's what matters. Sekhmet's rage was holy and sacred. It was in service of what was right. When you read about these males who will burn the world down for the heroine, whose rage is focused and absolute, whose violence is in service of protection, you are recognizing Sekhmet energy, and that energy is also yours. Women have been taught that anger is immoral or makes us unlovable, that we need to manage it and process it through therapy or make it smaller and digestible. But Sekhmet says your rage is information. When you feel it rising, it's telling you something is violating what is sacred to you. Something needs to be protected and something probably needs to end. Sekhmet embodiment looks like letting yourself be angry without apologizing for it, without making it nice, without explaining why you have the right to be mad. It looks like burning down what needs to burn. Jobs and relationships, friendships, versions of yourself, and trusting that the destruction is sacred work. It looks like being the lioness, fierce, protective, unmanageable, and not feeling a shred of guilt about it. That is Sekhmet. And every time you fantasize about a male whose rage matches the heroine's, whose fierceness is absolute, you're actually recognizing your own disowned inner lioness. So here's my point. These energies, Medusa's gaze, Sekhmet's rage, they're a fantasy in Rhysand, but they really truly exist in you. They got split off and exiled, and now you're seeing them in fictional male characters, but you can reclaim them. You can be your own fierce protector, and you can trust your own holy rage. You can have boundaries that petrify without explanation. And when you do that, if you still want partnership, you're choosing it from wholeness, not from need. You won't need him to protect you or be fierce for you. You'll already be complete, and that changes everything. Alright, so let's bring this full circle with something I want to offer you that goes even deeper than the books. Feyre, as a character, is objectively powerful. She saves everyone under the mountain, she kills the worm, she becomes High Lady through her own actions. The books show real female sovereignty, but there's one piece that's still external, and that is the mate bond. The idea that her full recognition, her complete worthiness, promise, her ultimate validation comes when Rhysand chooses her, when that bond snaps into place. And I get it. Being chosen by someone who sees you fully is absolutely beautiful. That is a real human need and a genuinely wonderful part of these stories. But that's what they are, stories. But what if there's a way to meet this need? What if you can take back your power, your sovereignty, both your inner Feyre and Rhysand elements in this weird little 3D world that we live in? And yes, I'm a witch and a dark goddess priestess, so you're gonna bet your ass it comes back to that. The mate bond that changes everything isn't with a fantasy or a partner, it's with yourself. It's the moment when your conscious self meets your inner dark goddess self and you feel that click, that recognition that yes, this is who I am. When you recognize your own Medusa energy and you know you're your own protector, when you recognize your own Sekhmet energy and you know you carry a fury that can destroy and change worlds, you become sovereign and complete, not through a connection with someone else external, but through accepting and reclaiming the whole you, the dark feminine in you, your inner dark goddess self. That is the mate bond that cannot be broken. That is the recognition that doesn't depend on anyone else. And when you have that, if you want partnership, again, you're choosing it from wholeness. You're not looking for completion in someone or something else because you're already complete. You're simply looking for companionship and partnership, for someone to walk that journey alongside you, not to complete you. And that is a massive difference. So here's what I want you to try. Before you look for recognition from someone else, give it to yourself first. Catch yourself when you think, I wish he could see how powerful I am, and ask, do I see how powerful I am? Catch yourself when you think, I wish I had someone to protect me like that, and ask, what would it feel like to be my own Medusa? Choose yourself first, completely, with the intensity that you're craving from the mate bond. There are a ton of beautiful, weird and witchy tools that help with this, but for now, that is the work. Okay, before we wrap up, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, because episode 3 is going to go deep into patriarchal love patterns and why he means well is the most dangerous phrase in relationships. You don't want to miss it. Alright, here's your soul work or your homework. Comment below with one quality that you're ready to reclaim. Maybe it's, I'm ready to reclaim my Medusa gaze. Maybe it's, I'm ready to trust my Sekhmet rage. Whatever it is, name it, make it real. And if you want to go deeper than just these videos, here's how you can work with me. I offer spellwork services, tarot readings, and one-on-one mentorship. And right now, doors are also open for Goddess Radiant Sorcery, which is my 6-week immersion into goddess embodiment and witchcraft for women who are ready to begin their journey at the Nightshade Sanctum and do this integration work in a practical and embodied way and learn how to do powerful witchcraft for themselves. All of the links are in the description. Remember, shadow work is not comfortable, but it is absolutely worth it, because on the other side of seeing what you've been projecting is reclaiming who you actually are. Who you actually are. I'll see you in episode 3.